Hello, my name is Maria Mendelson, and welcome to my presentation on the reception of Taylor K. Mejia's debut novel, We Set the Dark on Fire, which was published in 2019 by Catherine Teagan Books. This book was very well received on the whole. It received 6-starred reviews from Kirkus, Booklist, Publishers Weekly, Shelf Awareness, School Library Journal, and BookPage. All these reviewers praised Mejia's description of privilege, immigration, her portrayal of romance and complex female characters. They also described her style as rich and lush, and her storytelling as masterfully constructed, thrilling, and timely. Additional reviews from formal reviewers I found from NPR, the Bulletin of the Center for Children's Books, and Tor, now known as Reactor. In Reactor, the reviewer Alex Brown praised the book, calling it dystopian young adult literature as you've only dreamed it could be. Brown found Mejia's storytelling to be unexpected, despite the novel having certain predictable elements of dystopian literature, saying that the queer romance, the female friendship, and the Latinx influences set it apart. NPR's Caitlin Paxton, in her review, noted that while the book had a few flaws common to debuts, such as the flow of the plot and the cinematic build, these imperfections did not interfere with the book's luminosity. She noted that while the book dealt with heavy subjects, it managed not to feel heavy as it did so, a point that she credited to it being a YA novel. In particular, she admired how Mejia, one, discussed privilege, and two, centered the narrative around Danny and Carmen's queer Latina love story, making it defiantly sensual and romantic in the midst of all this world's sexism and prejudice. Kate Quealy Gaynor of the Bulletin of the Center for Children's Books review was the most critical. She praised the book's indictment of patriarchy and capitalism and Mejia's ability to make us sympathize with Danny, but she also thought that the characters lacked depth. She thought Mateo was a cartoonish villain and described Carmen as a plot device until the romance kicked in. Nonetheless, she still recommended the book for those who enjoy social commentary, thrilling espionage, and tender romance. The book also received a number of awards and commendations. One of them was the Oregon Spirit Book Award for debut fiction in 2019, and another was the 2020 Newcomb Institute Literary Arts Awards runner-up honor for debut speculative fiction. Most of the commendations I found were more listing it among books to be remembered or books to be recognized for the year. So, for instance, it showed up on the Rainbow Book list of great queer fiction to read for 2020, or the book list Editor's Choice Youth Audio list of great audiobooks for 2019. As far as reader ratings, I found a number of readers' platforms such as Goodreads, Amazon, Storygraph, Audible, and Common Sense Media. You can see they did that the book did very well here. I think the lowest rating is the one on Goodreads, which is 3.76 out of 5 stars, which is still a very good review. As far as the YA readers, like other presenters, I found it really hard to find young adult reviews. The target audience, according to Amazon, is 14 to 17 years of age, and the readers I found, the ones who identified their age were all younger than that, and then I found 2 other readers who didn't identify how old they were. The 3 I found on Common Sense Media all gave positive reviews. They all gave the book 4 out of 5 stars. One described how much they loved the story, another said the book was good for how it made them think about important topics. All 3 were very concerned about the violence of the story, and the one who was younger than 13 recommended that you not read it until you are 18 or older. I also found a book blog called Sasha and Amber Read, 2 sapphic teens with a love for books, and they absolutely loved the story. They didn't have a single criticism. They called it absolutely gorgeous. They said the story caught them up. They loved the sense of community and the romance between Danny and Carmen. Nearly every reader or reviewer that I came across was presented as a woman, and a number also identified as queer or chose to read the book during Pride Month. Several things that came up again and again in reviews, positive reviews, were that this book was very similar to Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale. But they also observed that Mejia avoided the cynicism of Handmaid's Tale and addressed additional issues such as politics, protest, race, and poverty. And they felt that the parallels were not too great, so that if you were tired of Handmaid's Tale, it didn't mean you should avoid this book, that there would still be plenty here to interest you. Another common response that came up time and time and time again was that this book was timely. I saw this everywhere. Kirkus called the book thrilling and timely. NPR said, "We Set the Dark on Fire" is a book so timely it hurts. Bookpage said, "We Set the Dark on Fire burns with parallels to today's biggest news headlines." New York Journal of Books said, "In the present-day dystopia that is Donald Trump's America, it's good to see a young, queer, feminist heroine rising to the occasion as she grapples with so many timely and relevant issues." There was one blog that talked about Danny and the Wall and the significance of that in the book, and called it again timely in our current climate. Ironically, when Mejia started writing this book, she started writing during Obama's administration before there was any talk of walls built between the US and Mexico. They said they actually intended for Medio's border wall to be a metaphor and found it deeply disturbing to watch what they were describing come to life as they wrote. Another thing that many readers were absolutely thrilled with was the Sapphic romance. Many early readers were, in fact, surprised by it, which is not too odd, given that if you read the book blurb in the book jacket, or you read the description of the book on Amazon or Goodreads, you'll see that they describe Danny as having a forbidden chance at love, but they don't say with whom. One artist known for illustrating fictional women who love women couples made some fan art of Carmen and Danny together, and I've included a link to that below. I encourage you to go check it out. It's really some lovely work. There were also 2 YouTube reviewers who mentioned how good it was to have a female masturbation scene, as feminine pleasure is so often given short shrift in stories. There were some who did not like the romance, and their reason was one of two. Either they were very bothered that Danny fell in love with her bully, that made them very uncomfortable. There were some that didn't even want to finish the book because of that. And there were some who felt that the romance moved too quickly. In fact, that was general criticism among those who disliked the book. They felt the story moved too quickly. Some wished they could have spent more time learning about the world before the action took off, and others said that they felt the characters in the story were bland. There were 2 points in the story where people talked about representation and really feeling seen. One revolved around being Latinx and queer. Reactor reviewer Alex Brown said regarding the romance, "I can't tell you how much it meant to me as a queer woman of color to read a story where a brown girl discovers herself without the entire novel revolving around coming out or turning into a kill your gays situation. Her queerness is part of her identity and affects the story in significant ways, but her queerness isn't the plot itself." And she wasn't the only one to take note of this. There were several other reviewers who said that while the romance was central to the story, it was not the story. It wasn't, the plot didn't revolve around it entirely. One of the things that's interesting about that is Teller K. Mejia said that when she was writing the story, when they were writing the story, they had to fight to keep both the queer and the Latinx parts of the story. As publishers at the time were saying, you have to pick one. You can either have your characters be queer or you can have them be Latinx, but you can't have both. And they pushed back and they said, no, this is my story, and they were successful in publishing it. They also said they were happy to note that this is no longer an issue today. Latinx kid lit writer Chris Rhodes talked about how Carmen and Danny's relationship alone is a revolutionary prospect and said that it was the kind of novel she would have loved as a teenager. So we have two reviewers right there who were saying, this kind of book wasn't around when I was young, but it was so powerful to read it now and to know that it's available to teens now. There was one book talk reviewer who started a book club at work and described how one of the people who came to that book club really felt, really resonated with Danny in the story because she was undocumented and he was undocumented, or he had been in the past, and how moving it was to have a main character who represented that experience. We Set the Dark on Fire has been banned in two places. In Tennessee, in the Collier School District during the 2021-2022 school year. It was also banned in Florida in Escambia County as of January 2024. I do not know what the status of the book is at this point, and I cannot tell you why it was banned. There was a list of books for both of these that were also banned, and I couldn't see any one dominant theme showing up throughout, so I can't speak to the reason for the banning. I can just say that I know it was banned at those times. The book did have a sequel, which also received some very good reviews, 4-starred reviews, and lots of very positive reviews on Goodreads and Amazon and Audible and all the other platforms I mentioned previously. So here are my discussion questions. Given how often reviewers discuss the timeliness of this book, do you think this is a book that will be less impactful in several years, or do you think this is a book that will withstand the test of time? And is this something we should even bother to consider when choosing books? I'll admit I came up with this question before. I knew that Mejia wrote the book during the Obama administration before the discussion of the wall being built between Mexico and the US. So that does influence how I feel about the book, but I thought I would still leave that as a thing for us to consider. My second question is, what is a book you would suggest reading alongside We Set the Dark on Fire, and why? One that I thought would be a really interesting comparison is World Made of Glass, just because both stories discuss activism and how to change the world around you, but they approach it so differently, and how the characters come to participate is so different, and how they come to care about their causes is so different. So I thought there would be a lot to unpack there. And finally, my third question, what are some discussion questions you would ask if you hosted an event at your library to discuss We Set the Dark on Fire? One of the reasons I'm asking this is because I could not find any discussion questions. We found them for We Were Liars, I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, World Made of Glass. So many of them came with questions in the book, or the publishers provided some, and I didn't find any here. So I was curious to see what you would encourage a group of YA readers to discuss regarding this book. I look forward to our discussion this week, and I will talk to you later.